fat and old. I didn't really do much in the way of advertising this Q&A session, but I've done 2 before, and I figure we'll make this a religious experience here weekly. Hello, we got our first viewer here, and I'll make a welcome statement here. I got 4 minutes here, but this will be question and answer session number 3 for Nissan D21 and WD21 Hardbody and Pathfinder questions that my viewers might have. And I'm going to do a little bit of just show and tell here in a second. I got something cool in the mail today, and it makes my project Pathfinder that much closer to being done. So let's we'll hang out and shoot the breeze, see what we got going on. So yeah, Mr. FedEx man pulled up to my house today while I was at work and dropped off a cool piece of equipment. And I also went and got some pricing on some much needed materials to finish the project. As we all know that I just need to do some wiring, a little bit more wiring, and some fuel plumbing, and it's gonna start. It'll crank. I don't know how well it's gonna start, but it'll crank. Hopefully it'll actually run on the first try. I don't know. If it doesn't run on the first try, then I'll just blame my clocking to the distributor. I have a bad feeling that that's not in the right position. So we got some viewers trickling in here. Got a couple people. Got a third one that's trying to get in. So we got a couple more minutes and then I'll get fired up. So we'll start right here at 8. It's 7:57 Eastern Standard Time. So what I'll do is I will blab for a couple minutes about some of the breakthroughs of what I've been working on and where my head is at, and then I will just open the floor for questions. So hopefully you guys brought some good questions. I've got the trusty 1990 Truck and Pathfinder manual within easy reach here in case I am stumped. I also have the library behind me here, which I can turn around and reference all the way back to about 1974 on this truck, if need be. It's 90 degrees here again, and it's ridiculous how much rain we've gotten in the last 2 days. I think we got 3 inches last night, 3 whole inches. It was crazy. And once again, my driveway I stoned it a couple weeks ago, and I've had to keep going over it with the loader, and now I'm gonna have to go over it again, just because it hasn't been completely crushed down. I don't do enough traffic to push the stones all the way down, but we'll get it. It'll be fine, and then it'll get all pushed away for the winter when I start moving snow. All right, everybody, it's 7:59 Eastern Standard Time. Welcome to Pounding Rocks Truck Shop. I am Devin, and I will be fielding questions and talking all kinds of stuff. And James says hello from Central Texas. So hello, James. How are you today? Let me get started by thanking everybody for joining question and answer session number 3. Julian hails from Arizona. Hello, Julian. Welcome. So what I've been doing is I've been plugging away little bits, attacking the corners on the Pathfinder pickup truck project. The last thing that I got done and functioning was I plumbed the clutch. So the clutch actually works. So I've got the X-Eddy clutch in there, the supercharged flywheel, the whole 9, the way it's supposed to be. All the repairs that I did to the transmission, shift linkage and everything seems to be working and holding pretty good. My only concern that I had, and I have to go in and get some P-clamps, is when you put the headers on, the original hose that comes off of the slave cylinder will cause the hose to go straight into the header itself, and it'll melt and you'll have no clutch after a minute. So I had to kind of get a little creative. I used a long rear brake hose off of a two-wheel drive Hardbody with banjo washers on it, and I threaded that in and kind of got it so it loops up and over the header and then goes up along the firewall. So I just got to tidy that up. It's not the prettiest thing that I've done in my life, but it's functional. I was at a welding supply company today, and I priced out some 1/0 cable. They're giving me a good deal because of the company that I work for. So I just have to put a piece of twine from the bed all the way to the front of the truck and measure how much I'm going to need, because they'll sell it to me by the foot. So there's that. So those are the two things that I've done that I can't show you. But what I can show you is what Mr. FedEx man dropped off today. This is a crucial piece in the process here. Ooh, this is a 2-core UCA, I'm sorry, not a UCA, UAC. There's nothing fancy about this other than it's a 2-core instead of the single core that all the other ones use. You'll see that it's got fittings for the automatic transmission, which we don't have, so I will just be capping these off. It looks like it's pretty good quality. Surprising, a radiator actually went through the mail, and only one little ding right here on the fin that I can probably straighten out is right here. The rest of it is actually in really, really good shape, which means that I should be able to just drop this in and have zero problems. Should. I'll use the word should. But the only thing I got to do is I've got the radiator mount bushings hidden somewhere in a box. Not exactly sure where, but I will find those and they will drop right in. And what I did was actually, I got to pat myself on the back here for this one, because normally in this circumstance with a 3-inch body lift, I would have to get 3-inch pucks and mount the core support on those pucks. Now you'll notice that I cut the core support off the original body, and so the core support was its own piece, and it's held in place by the fenders and the lower mount, so everything's triangulated using the fenders and the lower mount. What I did was I actually chopped out the lower mount brackets off of the original core support, which they're spot welded in, so I cut them out, and then I bolted them to the new core support, because you're supposed to, the new core support doesn't come with the lower mounts that mount it to the frame. You are supposed to replace the inner fenders, and those mounts are part of the inner fenders. So what I ended up doing was when I cut off the core support, I removed the lower mounts and cleaned them up so they were just the lower mounts, and then I bolted them to the new core support, which allowed me, what I did is I put the core support on and had it triangulated by the fenders, and then I put the lower mounts on based on the new height. So they're further down on the core support than they normally would be on a normal Pathfinder, because a normal Pathfinder hardbody, you would end up having to put a 3-inch body puck in there. But I did not. I was able to use all the original mounting hardware without having to use a puck in the front. And if you look at it, it's lined up excellent. So the core support's not like this far off of the frame. It's in the original position in relation to the frame, and it would allow me to be able to run the original bumper if I wanted to without having to dick around with spacing the bumper out. But yeah, I'm not running a bumper on the front of this truck. I am going to actually, because my fabrication skills suck, I am actually going to take the truck to a fab shop once it's done and have them make me a winch mount that's going to have a class 3 hitch receiver as part of it, so the whole truck would be able to have a receiver with tow ball, tow hook, whatever, and then also have the winch mount right there. So, but this also allows me to run the radiator in the original position as well, as long as I can find these lower mounts, and there's somewhere in my stash that I will have to take a look at this week. I know I've got some because I stripped another Pathfinder last year, 2 years ago. 2 years ago I stripped the Pathfinder and I was smart enough to save them, but who knows where the hell I left them. So the radiator is out of the way. The 1-aught battery cable, I'm figuring 30 feet maybe. I don't know. I'm going from a battery box to a breaker box. One of those little flip down resettable breaker boxes, 150 amp. And that breaker box is going to be hidden somewhere in the truck because I'm going to use it to be able to disable the truck. But from there, from the breaker box, and that's going to be close to the battery. It's not going to be like, 10 feet away. It's going to be like if that breaks, it's going to pop right there. I'm going to run it underneath the cab using P-clamps and wire loom with the 4-gauge wire. So I'm sending 2 wires from the battery up forward, and I just got to figure out how to get it around the headers and into where the starter is, because those headers kind of make it a little bit of a pain in the ass to get things going. But then again, I have the gap between the front fender and the core support that's going to be custom sheet metal. I'm going to bang some sheet metal out and fill that gap in. But the battery tray, where factory originally was, is not going to be there anymore. So the battery is going to be at the back of the truck, which is something that I want to do with the green truck eventually too. But we'll use Pathfinder pickup as the learning curve and figuring out how I want to do that. Dina's Garage says making a bumper is not hard. Check out Puddin' Fab, since he made a video about making a bumper for a 620. I could do that. I could probably figure it out, but since I'm going to be putting a winch mount on it, I don't trust my welds. I know that if I get stuck and I go to try and pull myself out using like a tree or something, I'm going to watch that whole thing just rip right out. Plus, I would like to have it look a little pretty, and I know for a fact that there's no pretty welds coming out of this guy right here. None whatsoever. That's Pathfinder pickup. I'll take questions on that in a minute. The only other thing that I've done recently was that I did build the exhaust system for Patches the Hardbody. I ended up reusing parts of the exhaust system that was on the old Rallycross truck, which that was custom from the front pipe all the way back, and has a cool like angle spout that comes out kind of like out of the corner of the truck, because they were going, Barry and was going for a kind of a drift truck kind of look thing. So you know how the Subarus come out and the muffler kind of goes up at an angle. This kind of does the same thing if you look at the pictures of it from the rear. But he built it so it goes over the axle. It's got the axle hump and everything. And all I have to do is load the truck onto the dolly and take it over to my buddy Justin's house where my welder is. I do have a welder. I just weld. I make bird poop welds. It's not because I'm not trying. It's because it's over there and I don't get enough time and experience with welding. There's like maybe 6 months between welds. So I lose any talent that I may have. When I first got it, I was gung-ho, but it just kind of, I realized that I'm not terribly talented, so I'm in that front. So. But I'm going to weld up the exhaust there, bring it back, and the only other thing that needs is I got to finish bleeding the rear brakes. The rear brakes, I haven't gotten a drop out of the wheel cylinders, but I do have a decent pedal, and it's not leaking anywhere anymore. So exhaust weld, bleed brakes, and then all I gotta do is just secure the front fenders a little bit better because the bolts broke off on the bottom. And once I get those secure, it'll be just in time for me to store it for winter because I'm not gonna drive it in the snow. But I will register and insure it in the spring, and we'll have more Patches adventures next year, which will be fun because the dogs love driving around in that truck, and I won't let them in my Subaru because the Subaru is like almost brand spanking new, and Benny likes to jump up on dashboards and everything, and we're not doing that. So that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys brought some questions. I will try to answer them as best as I can. Otherwise, I will just tell stories until you're blue in the face. So if anyone's got anything, just feel free to just pop it in. I didn't see anything really pop up on Instagram. I don't know. Sometimes my page has got a lot of traction, and sometimes mine doesn't. Dina's Garage says, my black lab just passed yesterday. I'm sorry to hear that. Man, there's no way to get over the loss of a dog. There's really no way. I lost my Merritt dog. Dina's Garage says tonneau cover. Yes, I won't forget the tonneau cover. I lost my Merritt dog almost 4 years ago, and Athena, the dog I lost last year. and I think of them nonstop. I miss them. I have two here. I've got Benny and I have Jet, but you know, I still miss the other ones because Merritt got sick. He got lymphoma. He passed away from lymphoma, which was a terrible experience to watch a dog suffer, to watch a dog waste away, and then finally have to make a terrible decision to basically give them mercy. I never wanted to have that. But if anybody will, if that dog trusted anybody to make that terrible decision, he trusted me. So I feel like I wouldn't want to leave that decision in someone else's hands. I wouldn't. Yeah, I loved him to death, and I wouldn't want anyone else to make that decision. I want, you know, as much as I hated it, I'm glad that I was the one who got to make that decision and no one else. So that makes it good there. So okay, so someone mentioned the pressing question of the tonneau cover. All right, so yes, I've tried in the last two question and answer sessions to answer the number one question that is on my page or almost every YouTube video that I've put the green truck on. I could do a video of the green truck saying, "Hey, I just did this really awesome thing to the truck," and the number one question that pops up is, "Where'd you find that bed cover, man? Where do I get that bed cover?" Patrick O'Neill says he's not really into cars, but he'll join. Welcome. Maybe I can change your mind on cars. And says, any reason why you did a body lift and not a suspension lift? I decided to do a body lift because we had the body off the frame anyways. So I was there. I had pucks. I threw them under there. And the suspension lift is in the future, but the trick was to just get the truck together enough to be able to see the overall concept of what it was going to be. Because I didn't know how it was going to end up. I mean, when you watch some of the earlier videos of me talking about what I was going to do with that truck and what actually happened, I was pretty dead on. I was pretty dead on that one. And so each time, what is my dream car? Oh, geez, I have so many dream cars. If I could have one in my driveway right now, that would be awesome. Just picking it off the top of my head. Infiniti G20. Either generation. It doesn't really matter. I think those are cool. 5-speed. Has to be a 5-speed. Those are cool cars. Just the proportions of it and everything. Now I'm getting off track here. But the suspension lift is going to be generation 2. Because once the truck is running and it's going down the road and I can shift it and I can drive it reliably, it's going to need the suspension redone. I was looking at the Jeep front springs to lift the rear end up another 1.5 inches or whatever that would get me up there. And other things I thought about was actually doing a solid axle swap. Once again, I'm not a welder. I would have to pocket some money, find somebody who's capable, and drop it off with them and say, you know, I'll get my hands dirty. I don't have a problem with being in the shop and doing it while they're doing it because I would learn a whole lot. But me to sit there and pull it apart in my shop and know what I'm doing, no. But I would definitely report to you guys what I learned, so any future people that want to do it have the opportunity to do that. So yeah, the suspension lift is coming up. Dina's Garage says, R34 GTR is my dream car, but it would not happen until I get my new garage built. An R34 GTR would be a nice addition to my garage. The G20T was the first thing that came to mind, just because it's more obtainable for me since they're kind of still out there. I mean, I haven't seen one on the road in forever that wasn't a rust bucket coming out of like some trailer park somewhere, but I know there's got to be a clean example somewhere. And the reason I like it so much is because when I rally crossed, we had one of those, and I had so much fun in that car. That car was awesome. It was just, it did great in the dirt. It was fun. You could bang it off the rev limiter all day long, and it actually was a top 10 finishing car locally. I didn't do, anything, professional on that front. All right, back to the number one question. The tonneau cover. So I could post just about anything. I could post a video of me drag racing green, whatever, and somebody would be like, man, where'd you get that tonneau cover? And I just had one the other day. It was on Instagram. I posted a picture of green truck. That's the big thing I almost forgot to tell you guys. I lowered green another inch in the rear. If you go on Instagram, Rainmaker_D21, you can see the before and after pictures. Green's rear end has been lowered. It's on 3-inch blocks instead of 2-inch blocks now. I completely forgot about that. I guess it's because I haven't been looking at green all week. But I posted pictures of that on Instagram, and of course, I got where'd you get the tonneau cover? So here's the answer. Are you ready? Tesla Model 3. Patrick O'Neill says his dream car is a Tesla Model 3. Nah, I don't hate you for saying that. Why would I hate you for having a car that you like? I think the fact that you like a car enough to know what you want, I think that's badass. All right, so the tonneau cover came from AutoAnything.com. It is an X-Tang Tough Tonneau 2. So there's the Black Max, which I had, which has got the snaps that go all the way around it. And then there's the Tough Tonneau 2, which has got like a plastic strip all the way around it that just pops into a rail, and it's seamless. And I've had that cover for 10 years now, at least 10 years. I think I always had a tonneau cover on one of my trucks, like my Datsun had one. I had a company make me one, and they did a really crap job, and it didn't last very long, but it looked badass. And I think it came from watching Bigfoot when I was a kid, because all the original Bigfoots all had tonneau covers with the big Ford logo on the back of them, and I thought that was cool with the roll bar. And I thought that was cool. So the tonneau cover thing always stuck in my head, and as soon as I started buying pickup trucks, I started buying tonneau covers. But this one I bought from Auto Anything 10 years ago. It had a 10-year warranty on it, so it's just about out of warranty now. And it is still in immaculate shape. As long as you use the right spooge on it to keep it clean and lubricated. Because if you go and you start using like Windex on it, or some kind of other leather treatment that's not supposed to be on it, the material will degrade. But X-Tang has specific requirements for what kind of material is on it, and I'm actually using stuff by a company called Crown. You've probably seen Crown around. They do all the undercoating and undercarriage stuff. So Crown mixed me up a batch of their vinyl protector, and that's what I put on after every wash. And it still looks like the day I bought it, except the X-Tang logo has kind of faded. It was red originally, now it's kind of pink because the sun is eating it, but the rest of it is pretty good. I ended up with the 3-inch lowering blocks. We went with a 2-degree pinion shim to correct the pinion angle on the rear axle. It was kind of a pain in the ass. I will say that it was more of a pain in the ass than I expected, and I'm glad that I had a couple. Justin was there, and my buddy Brian was there, and we had to take the wheels off the truck and actually kind of mess around with it a little bit, because we originally were going to put the shims on so the pinion went down. So the axle went up, but the pinion went down, and that would keep the 2 degrees between the carrier bearing and the actual pinion. But that wouldn't allow us to push the axle far enough forward to get it to sit on the centering pins. We could get one side on, but if I tried to push the other side, you could hear the drive shaft bottom out from being pushed forward, and bottoming out into the back of the transmission. And I think a lot of people run into this problem, and I didn't really realize it because I've always run 2-inch blocks, and with 2-inch blocks you don't really need to do a pinion correction of any kind. They recommend a pinion correction after 3 inches and 4 inches and 5 inches and all that. And if I went with 4-inch blocks, I wouldn't use pinion shims. I would actually take the blocks to a machine shop and have them shave the bottom of it and have them actually make the block have a 2 to 3 degree natural cut to them. That's what I would do, and I wouldn't have to worry about the shims, because I didn't really like the shims. For one, the shim's centering hole is like that big, and the centering pin is half the size. So that shim, if it wants to start walking around, it can do that. I also don't like it because it's thick enough that the centering pin barely sticks out of the top of it, so the block has very little to grab onto for the centering pin, so the block itself doesn't walk around. Now, I tried it in a couple different configurations. I did it with the shim on top, so we had the block right on the spring itself, and then the shim, and then the axle, and I didn't like the way that lined up. Patrick O'Neill says, what car would you recommend for the best gas distance for daily commute, 74 miles? That's a good question. Well, I would tell you what I used when I had an 80-mile commute. I used the Nissan Versa. I used a Nissan Versa 5-speed with a 1.6 liter. It was a 2012. It was a 2012 Versa, 1.6 with a 5-speed. blandest car I've ever driven, and it actually kind of hurt my shoulder after a while driving it, because all these new cars, your shoulder's like up here. If you try and stick your arm out the window, your shoulder's like all the way up here. Like the old days, you could have your shoulder, like Freiberger says, like a good car, your shoulder is going to be at the right angle. But these new cars, just because the windows keep getting smaller and smaller. Those Atlas pickup trucks that I've seen like advertised as sponsor the Atlas pickup truck, and whatever, take out stock in it and we'll build the truck or whatever. I look at that. Those side windows are like that big. If you look at the rendering of the truck, it's like big enough for your face to look out. I mean, you couldn't even like take like a McDonald's bag through the window or anything. Dean's Garage says, I have Beltec 3-inch lowering leaves, and I had to open up the pinhole in stock lowering leaves. Pad, that went away too fast, but yeah, the lowering leaves is probably the better way to go from blocks. I think that the lateral forces that blocks put on, you're relying on the U-bolt and the centering pin to do all the work. And the further away you get from the leaf spring, the more spring roll you might get if you're trying to like drift or do autocross or whatever. I have a feeling that my autocross, after doing this, I don't really think that my autocross days are around anymore with that. I mean, the truck may handle great, but I think I'd be absolutely paranoid to have the axle that far away from the leaf springs. I'd rather, if I did it again, and I could redo it if I wanted to redo it, I would get rid of the 3-inch blocks. I'd go back down to like a 1.5-inch or 2-inch block like I had, and then I'd have a spring shop make me a leaf spring with the front eyelets inverted. So instead of the eyelet curving around and the pin going through the eyelet like this, I would have it like that, and that would automatically give you like 1.5 inches of lowering with the same spring rate, and you could still use 1.5 inch to 2-inch block. His Garage also says, I also had Beltec 4-inch blocks, but they had me so low that my pumpkin was hitting the heat shield of the bed. If you need Who needs heat shields? Just rip them off. Get rid of them. Cut a hole in the floor. That's what a lot of guys do. They have to, with the airbag guys, they cut out a section of the bed to make room for the airbag structure and everything. But I guess if you're really not carrying anything and you want the axle to fully articulate, you could cut the bed floor out in that section, and the pumpkin wouldn't hit the bottom of the bed anymore. And who needs heat shields anyways? I mean, they all fell off anyways. When I worked for Nissan, they'd cut, like, cars would come in, they'd be like 3-4 years old, customer complaining about our exhaust rattle or whatever, and it would always be the heat shields up by like the front pipe and everything. And all we did was sell the customer on just sticking a pry bar in there and just ripping the heat shields off, and that's how we fixed it. That was the quick fix, because otherwise we were selling them the front pipes and nobody wanted to do that. So there was that. Yeah, so the tonneau cover came. The tonneau cover keeps coming back. The tonneau cover came from Auto Anything. It's 10 years old. It's been on green for years, and that's it. And Dina's Grass says, I plan on raising the bed floor. Yeah, well, you could do that. Raising the bed floor and raising the cab floor, that's some fabrication right there. Like Dave Chappelle from Dirt Every Day, he can do those in his sleep. That guy's a master fabricator. Every time I watch that guy on any of the Dirt Every Day shows, it just gets my blood going where I have to go over and work on one of my projects. That guy is an idol for me. I mean, there's the Roadkill guys, and there's the Hot Rod Garage guys and all that, and they're inspiring in their own right. But nothing inspires me like Dave Chappelle from Dirt Every Day. Dirthead Dave from the Dirtheads. Awesome. Okay, so you have a 620 project. Now I'm absolutely jealous. Oh, I ran into a 521 since the last time we talked. And I actually told the guy that if he's interested in maybe getting out of that 521, I left him my business card. It's actually in immaculate shape. I mean, all the way down to the access panel inside the bed. It's just, everything is beautiful. The only thing that's needs to be addressed, and I wouldn't even really like address it, is the dashboard is cracked. but the bench seat, the Datsun seat belts, everything, even the bumperettes in the back, they're uh, they're all in pristine shape. And he even started it up for me and ran it. We talked for about an hour, and I just saw it while I was passing by. I do outside sales for a John Deere dealer, and so I'm visiting farms all day long, and I happened to be around the corner, and I was done talking to the customer, so I was heading on to the next customer, and I'm driving along, and I just spot the front end of a Datsun 520. I knew instantly what it was. So I spun the truck around. I went right back in the driveway, and the guy's wife was in her car looking for her keys. She lost her keys, and she's like, "Can I help you?" And I'm all in my work uniform, and I'm like, "Yeah, who owns this Datsun 521?" She goes, "Well, that's my husband." I'm like, "Does he have to me about it?" And she's like, "Yeah." So she goes in, and she gets him. This older gentleman. I don't know how long he's had it. He was kind of a little bit secretive about where he got it from, but he said it was a California truck, and it had been repainted. So he showed me areas where the original paint was, but all it was that the original paint had faded from the sun. So it was painted the original color. It was almost an Ohio George color. It was a typical Datsun color from that time period. It even had the dog dish hubcaps on it and everything. Ran nice. You popped the hood. It was clean. I mean, it was beautiful. So if I was going to waste money on any project, I wouldn't even call it a project. If I was going to waste any money on a vehicle and put it in my garage next to the green truck, that 521, as long as he's not going to ask stupid money for it, everybody seems to think that everything's worth $1 million these days. You can blame Barrett Jackson for that. But if he comes back and he's got a reasonable number and says, "Hey, you seem to be the guy that could take care of this thing for me, and I want to move on to another project or whatever. Would you be interested in blah?" Well, let's talk. But if he comes to me and he goes, "I know what it's worth, and it's going to be worth 5 times what it's actually worth, and I'm not going to budge because I know what I got," yeah, I'll be like, "Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it." Yeah, that's Dina says, "Yeah, everything is going up in value. It's silly. It's absolutely silly." My buddy Justin, I don't know how he does it, but he can find deals everywhere. He just traded. This is a sad story. This makes me I don't know how I feel about this. I want to be happy for him, but at the same time, I'm kind of sad for the project that got sent down the road. So if you go on Instagram and you look at all the pictures of Pathfinder pickup over the last couple of years, it's been sitting next to a GMT 400, a black GMT 400. That GMT 400 Justin bought, and it had a 305 in it, and it immediately blew the head gasket, and it was just junk. The frame was junk, but the cab and the box were in excellent shape. So, I mean, really good shape for this area and everything. So, what he ended up doing was he bought a whole bunch of other GMT 400s. He traveled around the state and picked up GMT 400s to get to parts out, kind of like what I do with the Nissan trucks. And he bought a truck down south of here, like an hour south of here, just for the frame. So we cut it out. You'll see there's pictures floating around of me and some friends sitting in the truck with no roof, no hood, no fenders, no nothing, and we're pretending like we're talking on our cell phones, like we're badasses driving this fraction of a truck around. And he sandblasted the frame. Look who just joined. We got a Melinda here. Hi, Melinda. How are you today? It's good to see you. So he sandblasted the frame. That's how we came to own the sandblaster together. And he painted it and everything, and he got the tires picked out, the wheels picked out, and then he bought a 496 V8. Bought it as a brand new crate engine. And he had a TK600 or TKO 600 transmission. He had a 14 bolt with 373 gears in the back. This truck was going to be pretty awesome. It was going to be pretty awesome with the headers. He lowered it, so he did. He C-notched the frame, did an axle flip on it. I mean, he did a ton of work, and we all kind of joined in and did little bits here and there. I mean, I remember lifting the body off the frame, remember lifting the box off the frame. I remember moving this truck around. I remember going to junkyards with him looking for particular brackets so he could get the right radiator for a big block. And uh, well, and the truck had a name, and he didn't name it. It came with a keychain on it that said Ted. So we named the truck, well, he named the truck Ted. And so it was always known as Ted. And the truck's been around for a good 5-7 years now. It's been in the shop in various states and everything. Well, he had an opportunity to trade Ted straight up for a 70 or 72 Chevelle SS, numbers matching because that's all the rage. 396 SS. The engine was done over. It's now a 408, I think it is. I think that's what it is. But it's the original engine. All the numbers are on it. The only thing that isn't original is the transmission, I think, or the rear end. But everything else it's like, you know, it's a cool car. It's a cool car, but it's a project. He still has to put the motor in it. He wants to switch it to a 5-speed. And I like the car. All right, I don't have a problem with Chevelles. I think that it's one of those things, though, that after everything that we did to Ted, everything that we went through with Ted, and it's just sad that Ted's never, and Ted and Pathfinder pickup, Ted and Double Dare sat next to each other. They were neighbors for like the last 2 years, 3 years now. They've been neighbors. And to sit there and look at that empty spot in the garage, just it tears my heart up. I will never hear that truck run under the work that was done in that shop. Someone else has it. Someone else will make it run. I think somebody bought it just for the drivetrain. So who knows what's going to happen to the cab and the box? I mean, they could just put a 305 in it and it just turns into another, crap can going down the road. Or if somebody decides to really like fix it up, I think that truck would be totally sinister. And I was so excited to see it done. But it was traded, so it's a sad event. But it gave me an opportunity to see Double Dare as a side profile for the first time since I put the red fenders on and put it all together with the hood on and everything like that. So it's bittersweet, but I'm upset. Wow, upset's a bit drastic. Sad to see that truck is no longer in the shop next to my truck, and it's not going to get finished under the care of everybody that's in the shop and everything that everybody did and all the elbow and grease work elbow grease that we put into it. We will never be able to see the finished product of all the work that we did. And the Chevelle, cool car. I'm just not really a Chevelle guy, I guess. I'm just not. I mean, I'm not really much of a 70s. I like 70s muscle cars, but if I was given a heap of money and said, go buy something that you want to get, I don't know. I think a Torino GT would, if somebody, forced me to buy something, it would probably be a Torino GT or a Wildcat or something that's not every day. Chevelles are cool, but just not Ted. Tim Weber says, I'm about to do a leaf spring hanger re-drill on my 95. I have 3-inch blocks and 2-inch spindles, Beltec springs, trying to find some sick wheels. I don't know. Old school wheels are always sick. I don't know. It depends on where you're going. If you want to go with a 5-lug or a 6-lug. If you do a 5-lug, you're gonna have to put in some labor. If you go with a 6-lug, yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of look you're going for. If you're going for big wheels, like, something larger than 18s, then you might be a little hard-pressed. Some of the newer Nissan wheels with adapters might work. But if you're going to go old school 15s, it says, right now I have 2004 Titan 17 by 7.5, so, 16 by 8s. You can get 16 by 8s in those style wheels that I got on my truck. And he says he bored out the center of the Titans. Yeah, you have to do that. I love the Titan look. I love that look. It's a great look, especially with the right drop on it. It's a fantastic look, no matter what color the truck is. So, I think that'd be sweet. Oh, that just reminded me. If there was a truck out there, yeah, Tim Weber says he rubs with the tires that he has. It depends. How much sidewall do you have? What size tires are you running? Because too much sidewall will do that, and not enough. I mean, if you space them out too far with spacers, they're 235 50 17. Yeah, 235 50s might be a little bit much. I have not. I'm a 15s guy. I have a set of 16s, and I think they're 225s. And I have put 275 60 series in the back, but I wasn't lowered. I had factory ride height when I had 275s in the back. But yeah, that's the thing. If you go on infamousnissan.com, they have a wheel chart, will my wheels tuck chart, and you can do that. Yeah, 205, he says 205 40s. Yeah, 205 40s probably will do it. Yeah, they'll probably clear just fine. The problem is that the wider the tire, because the 40 series, 50 series is a percentage of the width. So if you're at 235, the sidewall is going to be 40% of that. I live in Massachusetts. Came from North Carolina. I didn't catch all that. I wish YouTube would leave the comments up so I could read them without them fading away. But I'll wait till the next comment comes up and then I'll address that one. But that's funny, Massachusetts. That's funny. Yeah, mass holes is what we call them around here. They all drive like garbage. At least we think we do. But New Yorkers are terrible. New Yorkers are terrible drivers. Unbelievable. I spend all day. I drive 300 miles, almost 300 miles a day now with my current job. And the amount of stuff that I see blows me away. This is the amount of lack of just, I don't think people understand what the word consequences are. They drive like there's no consequences. Like, oh, I'm going to blow the stop sign because I don't care. You know, everybody else is just going to have to clear out for me. I'm like, no, that's not how that works. See, the thing about a society is that if everybody agrees to the same, like, social norms, like stop signs, then everybody knows where everybody else is coming from. So, you know, you don't have to, like, guess, is this guy going to stop? And if I stop properly the way everybody else has agreed that a stop sign is supposed to mean to everybody, and then Joe fuckhead goes through and blows, you know, and Tim Weber, you're right, newer vehicles desensitize people, but still, they're just, you know, I understand that you're invincible now in some of these cars. I mean, my coworker just had somebody cut him off and he rolled his company truck. I mean, I saw the pictures of it. It's a brand new Ford F-250 and the roof is down right by the doors, pancaked, because somebody cut him off, because somebody probably wasn't even looking. Somebody wasn't even paying attention. The number one thing that I see that blows my mind, and it seems to be universal no matter what town I'm in, people cross the street without going through the crosswalks, without even so much as looking over their shoulder. They don't even know. I'm like, if I was going to die, yeah, Mel says newer vehicles keep people from having to pay attention altogether. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I mean, if you're walking, wouldn't you think to take a moment to look over your shoulder and say, well, at least I saw that car that killed me. I saw a girl that was texting and just, you know, just started walking right into the street. Like, what are you doing? I mean, what if the person driving cares even less than you do? I mean, that's all possible. Right now, it seems like we're all in a race to the bottom. You know, I saw an ad once, I forget what movie it was for, but down is up. They said, in a world where down is up. And I'm like, well, that sounds like the world that I'm in. Down is up. No kidding. Especially the way that people handle being out in public in spheres where everybody has to kind of interact. Dee's Garage says, I have the Titan wheels also bored out with 225 4017s and had to roll my rear fenders and install four-wheel drive fenders. I can picture that. You know, that's my biggest fear of if I was to lower the green truck anymore and go with a bigger wheel, because I do love the Titans after all. I would have to roll the fenders, and I really don't want to do that to that truck. I really don't think that would end well for me. So 15s, I actually, the way the stance is now, with the 3-inch blocks and the pulled overload leaf. I think that my next time around with tires, instead of doing 215 60-15s, I'm probably going to go with 225 60-15s. Maybe 225 60-15s in the front and 235 60-15s in the rear. And to take that one step further, there's that video. If you guys, I mean, I don't know how many people that are watching right now follow all the videos that I post, but last year I was at the junkyard and I came across a white 97 two-wheel drive automatic SE. It was a 4-cylinder, so it was a SE 4-cylinder automatic, and it had an unlocked set of 411s in the back. So it had the axle color was HG41, so that's a 411 gear set. And it's the exact same layout. Since the green truck has rear ABS, since the ABS is disabled, I disabled it for when I used to autocross, but it's still got the slightly longer snout on the pumpkin for the speed sensor back there, and this axle's got the speed sensor. So for the price that they told me pulled, so they lifted it up and cut it out for me. I bought the axle, so I got 411 gears now, whereas the green truck has 354s in the back, and those are great for commuter. Like if I get on the throughway and I start doing 75 miles an hour, green truck's doing about 2,700 RPMs, maybe close to $3,000, and it'll get 27 miles to the gallon. The problem is that for all the work that I've done to green truck, the engine is stock and the rear end is stock. And Patches, the 91 purple truck that I have, has the exact same engine, stock, except now it's more modified because I got rid of all the emissions. There's no emission systems on that truck at all. And green still has some of the emission systems intact. But Patches has 354s in the rear, has a 5-speed with the exact same ratios, and has a stock KA24E. So if I was to do a drag race between green truck and Patches, there would be no winner. And I'm like, well, that's stupid, because Patches is really kind of a pile of shit, and it's more like geared to be my work truck, so the work truck should get good mileage. And oh, thanks, Dina's Garage just hooked me up and said I'm adding Pathfinder power windows, but have to get the switches. Yeah, that's cool. I would look in, well, around here you're not going to find any of the switches around here. There are no Pathfinders in the junkyard anywhere right now. All the ones that I found have been plucked and crushed. But I'll get back to that in a sec. But the drag race between Patches and green would be absolutely like fruitless. Where green would smoke Patches is if there was curves. Like say you had to go, if green and Patches went side by side in an autocross, green would smoke it hands down because green's poly bushing, you know, Monomax shocks, you know, lowered, you know, good brakes, and you know, in that area it'd be modified, and would smoke Patches. But straight head to head, no difference. So where's the fun in that? There's no fun in the knowing that green truck doesn't have an edge over a base model, you know, 2-wheel drive. What? Bear with me here. I got 2 dogs that seem to know when I'm online and all that. Hey, you, go lay down. Just gotta warn you, Mel, if you're still watching this video, Benny has taken to eating your slippers. Anyways, I have stopped him on multiple occasions, and they are now inside a bucket, so he can't really get to them. So, my plan for green, and this is tentative. I don't think I'm going to get to it this year, but getting it lowered is a big step. So next year, if I'm going to have a project for green, would be to swap the pumpkins and take the 354s out and put the 411s back there, and that would really wake that truck right up. I'll tell you, everybody that asks me, how do you make a 4-cylinder 5-speed hardbody peppy, like how do you get it to like really take off? And everyone, a lot of the answers would be like, like my answer in the last question and answer would be like, throw a turbo on it. Gearing. Change the gears. If you can find HG 41s, if you can find HG 37s, like if you find a automatic, like a column shift automatic from like 1990, 91, 92, any one of those, the likelihood of them having 373, or I'm sorry, not 373 gears, but they have 370 gears. So a 3.70, so HG 37, or I'm sorry, I'm doing this all wrong. Let me correct myself. HF, the two-wheel drives, except for the heavy duties, mostly came with HF axles, which are H190 axles. The H190 axles came with like 354 gears, like which is standard in most of your two-wheel drive, four-cylinder, 5-speeds. The automatics, the earlier automatics, came with HF37 axles, which were 370 gears. So you could take the pumpkin out, they're the same housing, you could take the 370 gears out and put them in a truck with 354 gears, and next thing you know, you got a little bit more off the line pep because the 370 gears are going to make it wind up a little bit faster. Then, in my case, where I found the HF, and I got to correct that because earlier I said HG 41s. It's actually an HF 41 because HG is the H233B axle, and some of those came with limited slip, and some of them didn't. But the HF. Oh, see you later, Mel. Have a good night. So the two-wheel drive column shift or floor shift, like 1995 and later trucks, two-wheel drive obviously, had the HF41s. So when I saw the HF41 axle sitting in the yard, I was like, I can't let them crush that. I mean, those are 411 gears. So that could make a very, very fun truck. And originally the plan was to put the 411 gears in my little red truck, because the axle that's in it now has 4.37 gears in it. It's completely stupid. I mean, the thing tears ass off the line. It's ridiculous. Before you know it, you've got no top speed because it's all just, right off the red line. Every single shift is so quick. It's fun, and the reason I did that was because at the time we were autocrossing at a smaller parking lot, and Green's 354 gears just couldn't do curves, or couldn't do the turns. So if I did a tight turn and tried to go, Green would fall flat on its face. So my thoughts were, if I put 437s in the red truck and took it to the exact same parking lot and ran those courses there, it would be hell on wheels. It would be awesome because it would be like right in the sweet spot for every curve that I was taking. But they lost that facility and they started doing the races at an airport. And I took red. You'll see that I took red to that airport and absolutely fell flat on my face. I couldn't do my top speed with the autocross tires that I normally run. My top speed was about 53 miles an hour in fifth gear, basically banging off the rev limit. So it was useless, absolutely useless there. Green truck, on the other hand, did excellent at the airport the next year when I brought that down, because the gearing and the tires allowed me I could get more of a top speed, because that course was like 75 to 80 miles an hour. Green truck could get to those kinds of numbers because the gearing and everything. But since I'm not autocrossing really anymore and I'm just driving it around town, I want to have a little bit of pep. So I figure I can't do 437s. I just can't. They're fun, and I'm not going to get rid of them. I'm going to keep that axle. I might put it under something else someday, but the 411 gears are probably going to be a little bit more tame. I even still have the 370s that I took out of red that I could put in green, but that axle needs to be rebuilt because the bearings are shot on it. It's such a bad shake, it's crazy. So I got 370s that I could put in it, 411s that I could put in it. But if I put 411s in it, I'm going to want to go with a little bit taller rear tire. I'm going to go with a 235 50 or 235 60 in the rear, and that will fill up that wheel well real nice. It will give it a nice fat kind of, big tire kind of look that I like. and then it'll also have the ability to actually turn those tires for what it is. I mean, it's not gonna, be, street racing capable or anything like that, but at least it could move and it will still get some miles per gallon, so I won't like use an entire tank of gas going to town and back like Red Truck does. Red Truck blow through gas like crazy just because on the ticker, if I was doing 70, 75 on the speedo, I was only doing about 55 overall speed. But mind you, 75 miles an hour on the speedo also translates to the engine speed, and the engine speed was probably about 4,000 to 4,500 RPMs in fifth gear doing 55 miles an hour. It was crazy. I mean, it was fun as hell. I mean, I could sit there. I drove it with no bed on it. When I took it apart 2 months ago, I drove it down the street with no bed on it, and all I had to do was just blip the throttle, and the thing would just bust loose, and it was like pissing the neighbors off. It was pretty fun. I wish I could tow it somewhere and do it, but that truck's completely disabled now, and I miss it. I miss it sadly. I haven't driven it in a year, and I miss it bad. So, all right, that's story time, and so the amount of parts I have upstairs in the second floor of the barn here, I could configure like so many ridiculous versions of a two-wheel drive hardbody. It's silly. I mean, all things that Nissan could have done to make an exciting truck, except I don't have an SR20 DET, which if I built a truck, like if I took green and decided I was done with the KA engine, and I didn't want to do the 3.7 supercharged V6 build that I have sitting in the shop that may get done sometime in my lifetime, who knows. An SR20 DET with the 370 gears in the back, welded, or actually get a spool of some kind, but I'd probably end up having to weld it and whatnot. With the 5-speed in the original configuration, I think green would be the Hardbody SS, Hardbody ST that Nissan should have put out. Nissan missed a tremendous mark by not doing any limited edition trucks other than the Desert Runner. And the Desert Runner is a cool truck, and it's nothing more than stickers and accessories. There really is nothing, really nothing too much. I do not have an SR20 DET, and I know if I was to try and find one, I'd be paying probably, I know that Justin had one in his Suzuki Sidekick, and he probably paid $2,500 with the transmission to have it shipped overseas here, and I think he sold it for that amount to get his money back, and now he's got a Cadillac 3.6 in the Suzuki Sidekick. I couldn't even fathom coughing up that kind of money, because the fail rate of me actually getting it in there or having time to get it in there and wanting to rip my truck up, I couldn't do it. So I'm just going to stick with the KA, tinker with gears, and worst case scenario, I have a turbo manifold, because those are, I think the turbo manifolds are discontinued now. I've had people ask me where they found them, and mine, I think I got mine off of Amazon. I think I did. And something about my timing, some of the things that I buy and then find out they're discontinued, I'm like, wow, I'm glad I kind of bought that. Dina's Garage says, I'm thinking of a Honda K24. Well, you have fun with that one, sir. I couldn't even begin to tell you what you need to do on that. You would just have to make the hardbody think it's a Honda, I guess. It's kind of the same idea of what I'm doing with the Double Dare project. The Double Dare project thinks it's a 1992 Pathfinder. It does not know that it's got a 2003 Xterra engine. It does not know that it's a... Julian Nichols says, Desert Runner really only has a better leaf spring perch. That may be. That may be. Those trucks, I don't even think those trucks were actually race tested. I mean, if they were done independently. I don't think Nissan slapped any actual Desert Runners in race situations. I think most of the trucks were all fabricated one-offs, like the Spencer Lowe program and everything. So the Desert Runner, other than the leaf spring perches, as you said, mostly cosmetic with the roll bar, light bar, the tailgate net, which I would love to get my hands on a Nissan tailgate net. I would love to. I've looked, not happening. And even if I found one, it would probably be wrecked. And then whatever the front setup was with the front winch bar, the front bumper setup, and then the graphics package, which is a cool truck. And I thought about doing a tribute to that when I put the red hood on the Double Dare truck and saw the white fenders with the red hood. I was like, ooh, should I do a desert runner? Then I'm like, no, because I got red fenders that will go with it and a red cowl. I might as well just do the red, white, and blue. My own kind of take on the red, white, and blue thing. Because the SCCA trucks and the Spencer Low trucks and all that, I find those to be pretty awesome. So I'll throw that in there. My own variant, though, I'm not going to do. I thought about painting half the doors and then having the white Nissan on there, but I think I'm just going to do the lower part of the door and the rocker panels and have it be like that. So it's kind of like, it's not really, because I haven't gotten any official blessings from any of the original people, so I don't really like to steal liveries without getting some kind of blessing. Because if you get a blessing from somebody and says, yeah, go ahead, use my paint code, here's my paint code, and here's the scheme that I did, it gives it kind of an extra meaning. So like for example, my buddy has the Little Hustler Datsun 620 gasser truck that I've driven to a few different shows and did a little work on and everything. That is done in the same color scheme as the Ohio George Willys gasser race car. And in order to do that, the owner of the truck contacted Ohio George directly and told him what he was building and told him that it was going to be a tribute, but a Datsun 620 tribute to his Willys. And Ohio George was honored and gave him his blessing and gave him the paint code, so he knew what the paint code was. Buddy, don't do that. Why don't you go lay down? Go lay down. Dogs, they're awesome. They're smart, but sometimes they do things that aren't smart. So like Jet Dog here thinks that there's a blanket on the couch, and so he keeps trying to scratch it up so he can make a bed out of it, but all he's doing is scratching the couch, and it's not dawning on him that he's like, wait a minute, this isn't bunching up into a bed. What's going on here? Ryan Miller asked me, how do you feel about overload shocks for a two-wheel drive hardbody work truck? You mean like air shocks? I used them. I had them on the red truck, and they were extremely handy. I ended up getting them through AutoZone, and because AutoZone had the best deal. Everybody else has got them for like twice the price, and AutoZone had them for, well, half the price. So I ordered them. They installed easily, and that's how I brought a lot of stuff from my old storage garage here. Toolboxes, engines, transmissions, cabinets, furniture. That little red truck moved me into this facility. And air shocks were awesome. So I always kept like 4 pounds at any given moment, but I've put as much as 80 pounds in there if I knew something was, going in there pretty heavy. So air shocks, yeah, if you're going to do heavy duty shocks, air shocks would be the way to go. Because that also makes it so it takes away all the squat. Red truck, when I had the slots on red truck, and that's part of the reason why I did it, was because with the slots, which was a beautiful look, when I loaded the red truck up, anytime I took a corner or whatever, the fenders would rub on the outside edge of the tire because the tire stuck out so far past the edge of the fender, and it was wearing my beautiful plastic fenders away. It was sanding them away, and would lift it up, and then it would put a gap between the tire and the fender well, so if the truck turned and it had a little bit of lean from turning, it wouldn't rub the inner fender anymore. So there's always that option, and I would recommend that option. The KYB gas adjust shocks are good for that kind of stuff, and I use the Monomax, the KYB Monomax shocks. A spring assisted shock is what I've been looking at, but air shocks are in my secondary outfit. You could get the shocks that have the auxiliary spring on them. I've not used those. I don't think I've had a vehicle that's had those, but it's not a bad idea. I mean, it definitely ups the capacity. When I originally built the red truck the first time around, um, before I lowered it, I took the leaf springs apart. I took the leaf springs down, and I had a set of leaf springs off of a heavy duty V6. There's pictures of that on my Instagram. It's a white long bed. The cab of that truck is what's on the Pathfinder pickup. But I saved all the good bits off of that truck when I was taking it apart, and I saved the torsion bars because those are thicker, the 1-ton torsion bars, and I saved the leaf springs off of it. And what I did was I had the original leaf pack. I took out the center pin, and I stacked 2 more overload springs on it. So there was a total of 4 springs per side, because it was 5 leaves per side. So there was main leaf, secondary leaf, original overload leaf, and then I put 2 other overload leaves on it. Each one's progressively shorter. So it was a 5 leaf pack. I got longer centering pins with no shoulder. I went to a shop that built go-karts and dirt oval track race cars, and I said, "You got centering pins?" And they're like, "Yeah." So they gave me some centering pins. Put it all together, put it on there, and that truck was sprung like unbelievable. It was unforgiving. It was awesome because the back end was like nice and high and everything like that. The problem I ran into was that it was very, very easy to get upset, especially in slippery conditions, because there was no suspension give. So it was mainly on the tire to give you the suspension, because the leaf springs just would not articulate. They were so stiff. It was on the tire. So if you're driving along and you're on wet pavement and the tires lose contact with the road while you're on a slight curve, like say you're just doing a slight curve to the right, and the rear tires leave the ground because that's the only suspension that you have while you're turning, now the tires have shifted position. And I actually had a moment of complete total fishtailing where I thought that I was going to just totally go around and go into oncoming traffic, just because it was so unforgiving that it was on, the tires had lost contact off the road because of the imperfections in the road, and it was like an oscillation kind of thing, and it just spun right out. So after I did that, I took the overload leaves, the extra ones, back out, and I just ran it with the heavy duty pack, which was good enough. And then when I lowered it, after the carrier bearing the carrier bearing died, I had a one-piece drive shaft made, but in order to clear the carrier bearing center bracket, I had to lower the truck 3 inches. And when I lowered the truck 3 inches, then I ended up having to use air shocks to push it back up. So. Oh my goodness, man. It was like never ending. These are the kinds of things that I learned just by screwing around and having to make things work, but I don't think I'd want to do that again. I think now that I've dicked around with enough parts, I think if I was to do it again, I know what parts I would want to use right off the get-go. And I would start by getting a custom leaf pack made from a spring shop. I'd bring the original leaf pack with me, and I'd be like, make me a leaf pack with this arch, and this thickness of the main leaf. So I think the original, I can tell you right now. Let's look at the rear suspension section of the handy-duty book here. The rear axle spring for the two-wheel drive regular cab, just non-heavy duty, I think it's 8 millimeters thick. I think that's the thickness of it. Rear axle, give me 1 second. I'm getting here. Just with the front suspension, rear suspension, specifications, specs. Okay, leaf spring thickness. by 1990 they had changed all of them. No, I'm right. So spring thickness was for a USA two-wheel drive. It said it had two springs, which is not right. This can't be right. Thickness of 0.28, so a quarter of an inch thick, roughly quarter of an inch thick. The heavy duty was closer to like 3/8 thickness, according to this 0.031. It's close to 3/8. So you can see this. I'll show you this chart here, and you guys might want to take note of this. This is how I studied and learned all this stuff. But you can see, if the camera will focus on it. Let's get it to focus. It's not really all that great. I'll probably post this up to Instagram. But you can see, like right here, this line right here, and all this shows you the two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, and heavy duty. You can see that the main leaf is 8 millimeters thick, and the two-wheel drive regular is about 7 millimeters thick. So I would do that, go to them and be like, make me a leaf pack that's like 8.5, 10 millimeters, whatever, you know, pick a number, and then have them do a certain arch, and then have, you know, and then obviously have your secondary leaf, and you could build a custom leaf pack to whatever you think the truck's going to have to handle. I mean, just bear in mind that the problem I ran into with the red truck is that the shock tower ended up ripping out of the side of the frame just because of fatigue, metal fatigue, and rust and age. So, you know, try to be careful. You don't want to break the truck's back. So, oh boy, we got a porn bot in here. Unreal. You know that you're starting to get some traction when you got a porn bot coming in here. Yeah, porn bot giving me comments. I'm not even going to read the comment, but apparently I have attracted the porn bot. So, hello porn bot. What kind of Nissan do you drive? Let's hear about your car. I don't want to hear about your experiences in the back seat of the car. I want to know what you're driving today. Let's see if they respond. Probably not. All right, so what other questions do we got? I'm going to probably run this for like another 5-10 minutes because I ran my data out pretty good with these last two videos. I didn't even think about that, and I did that hour and 45-minute video, and I just smoked my what data I had left. So next month I'm going to up my data program to an unlimited, and then I can sit here and talk to you for like 8 hours if I had to, you know, if you guys wanted me to. If you got any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Mind you, bear in mind, I'm going to have a huge fire sale on parts coming, not this year. Ryan Miller says, fortunately I live in Missouri, so it's not horrible winters, and the truck I'm turning into work truck is under 100,000, so I'm planning to rust proof as best I can. Yeah, man, I tried rust proofing my red truck, and that was a California truck, and it came to Rochester, New York, where I found it, and it was used as a work truck. When I bought it, it had a ladder rack on it and everything. And this is Benny. Say hello to Benny. This is Benny, and yeah, he's a good boy. At least you are. You're a good boy. But he doesn't answer too many questions very well. He eats slippers for a living. But yeah, where was I? Oh, yeah, it was here for like 6 years. Yeah, it was here for like 6 years, used as a work truck, and then the brake line and actually one of the fuel lines ruptured right by the tank. And rather than fix it, they parked it underneath a tree for a couple good years, and so it filled with pine needles. And my buddy bought it. He was going to turn it into a rallycross truck, and then realized he wanted to go a different route, so he sold it to me. I took it here, I cleaned it up, fixed the fuel line, drove it, promptly blew up the automatic transmission, and then I decided to swap it to a 5-speed because the rest of the truck was actually pretty good because it was a California truck. And then I was forced to drive it through 2 winters, and that destroyed it. That was the end of it. I tried to save it by not driving it through any more winters, but once the damage is done, the damage is done. You can't stop chemical processes. You really can't. So yeah, this is Benny. He's been here a year. I rescued him from a bad situation up in the city, and I think I told you guys last time he was a nutter, and he's still a nutter. He's just a little bit better behaved nutter than he was before. Before he would hump anything and everything, and never rest, never shut up, and he didn't know his name, and he didn't know what was going on. Now he knows his name, he knows a little bit what's going on, but he's still, he's only 2, so he's still got a little bit more nutter left to go before he chills out. But step 1 was to fatten him up a little bit because he was scrawny. He had a big old scab on the side of him because it looked like he'd either gotten something on him and he was trying to itch it away, or somebody kicked him, something or other. And he had a bad ear infection and raging balls, so he was not on a good path. He was on a bad path, and so I brought him. I brought him here, got him out of the city, brought him out into the country, and he's definitely made me earn it. There's no resting. This guy does not rest. All right, why don't you go lay down? Nap time. Go lay down. Yeah, everybody thinks you're cute, but I'm in the middle of videoing, so. Yeah, thanks, Rylan. He's definitely something else. The original owner said that he was going to let him run as a stray, and the lady that he was with at the time was trying to find a good place for him, and finally found me. So, buddy, all right, go lay down. Go lay down. Dude, it's nap time. Okay, well, I guess Benny's trying to tell me that we've done enough live stuff tonight, so why don't we reconvene next week? I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and thank everybody for their comments. I want to thank the porn bot for making me feel like I've actually achieved a level here. So I hope that she has a wonderful evening, and I'm sure she will. Someone will pay for it. And so I will think of some more things to tell you about next week, and hopefully I can get this radiator in there, and then I can present some more pictures. But in the meantime, feel free to follow me on Instagram, which is Rainmaker_D21. Lots of dogs, lots of truck stuff, lots of just informative stuff that I try and bring you. And awesome. Julian, I've got some information on the TBIs from 87, 88. Put together some questions. Send them to me through Instagram or email them to me at NissanRallycrossTruck.com. I'm sorry, no, NissanRallycrossTruck@gmail.com. There's no NissanRallycrossTruck.com. Email them to me, and I will research everything that you have concerns with, and then next time around I'll start with just answering those questions as best I can. Those things suck, and they're getting very difficult to get parts for, and there's none around here, because if there was, I would be bringing parts, tools, and I'd be snagging them and just selling them on eBay, because they're a nightmare. So and I really do recommend multi-point fuel injection, but I know not a lot of people want to sit there and swap engine harnesses and everything like that, but it may be the way to go. Or what my buddy Rob did, was he swapped over to a Weber carb. He actually did a 3.3 liter swap with the original TBI lower manifold, and he put a Weber carburetor on it, plumbed it all in, changed the distributor over to a different distributor, an aftermarket distributor that works with that system, because once you get rid of the TBI system, the distributor doesn't have a clue what's going on. And he says it runs like a rape date. He says it runs great. And you can contact him through infamousnissan.com. He has a page on doing just that. He has a thread on replacing all that stuff. So, but send me your questions through Instagram or through the email, and I will do all the research I can and answer any questions that you have that I'm able to at least get information on. But yeah, so I understand your pain. Really, those are not fun. I'm so glad that I don't have one. As much as I love the 86 and 87. So, barking dogs, you guys have a wonderful evening. I will be back here next Thursday at 8 p.m. for another sit-down Q&A on Nissan D21 and WD21 Pathfinder questions. So until then, you guys hang loose, and I'll see you then. Thanks again for everything. See you guys.